Good afternoon, everyone. Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Ken Meyer, and I am the Commissioner for the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. Thank you to everyone that is joining us today for our first Expo of 2022. This is the segment of the Expo where we get the opportunity to hear from movers and shakers in industry, as we otherwise call it, our keynote address. Joining us today for our keynote address is Katie Tutton, founder and co-owner of the Hideout. For over 2 decades, the Hideout has been an independent music and performance venue, community space located in the Bucktown neighborhood. And Joe Shanahan, owner of 2 live music venues, Metro and Smart Bar. Joe also owns G-Man Tavern. All 3 of these establishments are located in the Wrigleyville area. Both Katie and Joe were named the 2021 Chicagoans of the Year by Chicago Magazine, so shout out for that. During the pandemic, Katie and Joe were on the front lines and became the public face of Save Our Stages campaign, not only here in Chicago, but even nationally. Speaking to the national media and legislators to get emergency funds to our independent music performance venues, which was so critical when various, not only Chicago, but the state of Illinois and other states across the United States had our stay-at-home orders during the beginning of the pandemic. Let's give a virtual round of applause and welcome, I think we go like that, right? And welcome our keynote speakers, Katie and Joe. So welcome. So Katie, I'm gonna begin with you. Katie, tell us, why did you decide to open up a music venue instead of, your standard bar and grill or just, bar in the corner?
Well, it kind of underscores the Hideout and our mission, which was, follow your heart and follow what you know. So quite frankly, we didn't know anything about food. So we loved music. And for any entrepreneur out there, you follow your heart and you follow what you know. So it was pretty easy for us that we wanted to become a community space and a music venue. I just also want to say, this is so encouraging, this workshop. I kind of wish that there was something like this when we started 26 years ago, because really, bravo to you guys for pulling this together. So, yeah, so that was basically it, Commissioner, as we followed our.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And we have to give a little bit of a shout out to my predecessor, Rose Escaranio, who back when the department was created over a decade ago, she actually started here and was one of the founders of creating these types of programs so that entrepreneurs who are thinking of, getting their toes wet, want to learn more about opening up a business, have an opportunity to learn more. And our department hosts every Wednesday and Friday virtual webinars for entrepreneurs and even for small business owners themselves that want to perhaps expand. And we always encourage folks to participate in the Wednesday afternoon and Friday morning webinars, only because we want everyone to be successful. We want everyone to be a successful business and hopefully, stay open and be a success for decades and decades. So everyone that's participating today, go on to our website at BACP.gov, and in our website, you'll have information about our twice a week webinars. So Joe, moving right along. Joe, you are what most would consider a serial entrepreneur. And I say that in only great sense of the word serial. You own and operate 3 music venues. What was it that inspired you to not open 1, but 3 music venues? And maybe just kind of give us a little bit of the history, particularly for those who are joining us today that may already have an establishment open and they're thinking about maybe opening up the second, or maybe they have the second, now they're thinking about the third. Right. So take it away.
Well, Ken, first of all, I echo my colleague's statement about BACP and your predecessor, Rosa. It's important that this community understands how to work with the city. And as Katie said, I wish there was something 40 years ago when I first opened Metro. But it's here today, and it's working. And I'm happy to be on this call today. Independently owned and operated for 40 years, Metro and Smart Bar. So I'm a little groggy this morning because I had Patti Smith last night. So just so you know, I'm a lack of sleep. But it's beautiful what we do. It's beautiful. We love the music. We love the patrons. And now working with the city in this way where we can have a transparent relationship about licensing, about just the minutia that goes into keeping our venues operating safely as well as financially responsible. I think that's a very important aspect of what we do today. Quick side note, I met Rosa in an elevator at City Hall, the first time I met her. And I was going to pay a ticket. I had to pay a ticket. And she saw me and she recognized me from like the press or something. And I said, oh man, I'm going to go pay this ticket. She goes, Joe, you're going to be fine. So I knew right away that we had a friend at what has now become the BACP. And Ken, I welcome you to this group as well.
Thank you. And then let's take a little bit further. How did you decide, when did you know it was time to open up a second and or third? Because you didn't do that all at one time.
Well, actually, Smart Bar came first. So the dance club, the dance room came first. 400 capacity dance room was started in July of 1982. I did my first show at Metro later that summer. A little band from Athens, Georgia called REM. It begins that journey where, like Katie said, I just like these bands, and these bands weren't on the radio. There was no MTV yet. It was college radio and word of mouth. And so it hasn't really quite changed too much from that, right, Katie? It still feels like our community talks to each other, especially at the independent level that we're at. I think that's one thing I'd like to say in this keynote is that communication is key. Communication to your aldermen, communication to your fans, communication to your media. And now it's even easier with social media. So that's kind of how we started. We had a good idea, and fortunately the money followed. And I agree with Katie that it comes from the heart. If you believe in what you're doing, go for it. Failure is not necessarily something that is bad. You may fail a few times, but just if you like what you do, it won't work a day in your life.
That's great. Very, very good. Good remarks. Katie, the Hideout doubles as a community space. Why was that important to make the Hideout a multifunctional space? And can you tell us about the type of community events that take place there?
Sure. So my husband, Tim, and I come from the social service world. He's a Chicago public school teacher. I was a social worker for 30 years. And we knew that it was important for it to be a space that people could have fundraisers and such. But we are our community, as Joe was saying, that the people that we serve are, it's the same, it's us. And so it only made sense that we also open up our space for people to share ideas and conversation. It's a public house. We really look at it as a public house. So yesterday we had something called the Jane Project, which has to do with Roe v. Wade. The day before, there was Ben and Maya had an open discussion about the ward maps with Alderman Sawyer and Alderman Carlos to discuss the new upcoming ward maps. We have an event, Soup and Bread, where all the money goes to food pantries, veggie bingo, all the money goes to community gardens. So we are our audience. And so we felt it was really important that there be a space where people have ideas. So the interview show, Mark Baser came to us and said he had an idea to do something like the Dick Cavett show, and we're like, bring it. And then there was a group of women that came to us and said, why do you only have male talk shows? And we said, okay, what's your idea? And Girl Talk started. So we are always open to ideas, and we always wanted to be a space where people could have not only these kind of conversations, but also their wedding, their bar mitzvah, their funerals, one of our staff members once wrote on the chalkboard, Commissioner, welcome to your hideout. And we really believe that, like, as my father just said to me, you don't own the bar, we own the bar, one beer at a time. And I really take that to heart.
Yeah. I have to add to that because, Katie and I, while our venues are, maybe I'm 10% or 100% bigger than her. I'm 1,000 capacity. She's 100 capacity. But it's interesting because the dialogue is very similar. And I want to stress the fact that, like even last night with Patty Smith, I went to her and said, we're going to do a special silkscreen poster. Can we sell these? And she says, well, what are we going to do with the money? I said, we're going to give it to the local pantry. Are you up for that? And she's like, I'm in. So I think communication goes back to looking at your neighborhood, go block to block, house to house. I mean, that's kind of our grassroots idea, even with civil, right, Katie? In a sense that we look at our neighborhoods, we look at our patrons in a lens that it's inclusive. And whether I'm working with Columbia College on a manifest event, or I'm working with Tom Tony, my alderman, on a house music event in the hot dog parking lot across the street. I mean, these are the things that you do. You reach out, you talk, you communicate, you find out ideas from your patrons, from the people that are actually supporting your staff and your staff themselves.
Thank you, Joe. So, Joe, let's just take this a little bit further and let's talk about the pandemic. Small businesses took a big hit when the pandemic happened, especially performance venues like yours. Across the country, many of them were forced to close their doors permanently, unfortunately, and many of them are still trying to recover. How do you manage to keep your doors open, and what recommendations do you have for others in the business, not only in Chicago, but just all over the country?
Number one is the staff. My staff really did not leave me. We lost a couple of people. One went to Florida to work for a large promoter. But other than that, most stayed with us, which is we tried to make sure they got paid what we could pay them. Mm-hmm. I think as far as business, the most important thing that I can stress here is that I'm with a local bank. I'm not with a big Chase or a big, arm. I'm with a local bank, and my local banker, he helped me. I had a long conversation with him about the wherewithal of my business, and that we were mandated closed. We were mandated by the city of Chicago, by the state of Illinois, and basically a federal mandate of a lockdown of our businesses. That starts the conversation of Save Our Stages with my colleague Katie and I just getting up in the morning talking to aldermen and senators and congressmen and women to help us. It was money that was due, and we felt that to keep our doors open, to keep our people working, that was important. But again, I go back to the idea of my local bank, my local banker, and the people that supported us.
Commissioner, I'd just like to add for those on the call, we also Fast and Furious read everything that BACP had to offer, that the city, the state, and the federal government, because there were resources out there that our colleagues could apply for to keep them afloat. And our theory was that we all collectively have to survive, or none of us will. And to Joe's point, Commissioner, if there's no hideout, there's no metro. If there's no metro, there's no hideout. Like they coexist. But I would just encourage everyone to sign up for BACP workshops, DECO, DC, EO, anything related to your field where you might be able to get some assistance. And to Joe's point, our number one thing was, how do we keep the staff, that they have the financial needs what they need. And Spencer Tweedy volunteered, the kid, I can't believe it, but he made a very long list of where resources were available. But it was the community that rose up, and we all did GoFundMes, and our community supported the staff. So I think between Joe and I, our GoFundMe was raised $50,000 in like 2 or 3 days for the staff. And again, check-ins with the staff, to make sure everyone was okay and people, yeah.
We were trying to make sure that we were paying rent or insurance for staff to make sure that didn't fall away. That was money that I would have driven a truck for Amazon if I needed to, But what Katie and I did, it was very unique because I will say that the BACP, and again, Commissioner, hats off to all of you there, is that we would put this on our dry erase board here, pay attention to the BACP guidelines because we wanted our staff to be informed. I mean, for me to tell people, this is what we're doing. No, we would say, here's a link, go look at what they're saying. Even when it came down to the mask or vaccinations, we were spreading so much information and good information, founded information from BACP and even the SBA. One of the things that Katie was able to put together was a Wednesday morning call with an SBA officer. And we just had questions about how to derive funds from the SBA, which then, of course, led to getting a meeting through Congressman Quigley to Elizabeth Guzman, the head of the SBA, who came to Chicago to meet with the mayor and the governor. And they found time to meet with Katie and I in our group. We sat with her, we told her, we put a face to our businesses and said, look, we need this money. You need to help us. Save our stages is an important aspect of how we're going to survive and bring back the 120 people that work at Metro and bring back the 50 people that work at Hideout. And that's what it was about, jobs.
Yeah.
Joe, you make a good point. The SBA. So for those of you on the call, I would sign up for SBA newsletters. There's really helpful little nuggets in there.
Very true. Mm-hmm.
Really good resource.
One thing I keep hearing you folks, both of you talk about is employees and staff. And employees make a business. Tell us what you did you always do to ensure your employee satisfaction? And clearly it's working because as Joe described just a few minutes ago, he really didn't have a lot of turnover, even during the deep, dark days of the pandemic. So I think that might be helpful for our listeners today.
Yeah.
Katie,
go ahead.
I would like you to go first.
Okay. It's really simple. We're a democracy, right? So we collectively come together and we vote. So even, when it came to masks, are we going to keep masks? Are we going to continue to ask for vaccinations? The staff voted and we followed their vote. They're the folks that are in there day in and day out. Also, to what Joe said, I empowered my manager to just say, I said to her, I don't want to hear after this is over that anyone was evicted or they went without food. If anyone, reach out to them, if they need anything at all, we will give it to them. I don't even need to know who it is. And so I think it being that they support us, we support them, it's cyclical and it's not that difficult, Yeah. They're on the front lines, so to speak. I mean, Joe and I are at our venues all the time, but people want to be heard. It's as simple as, it's pretty simple. And they have great ideas, We'll often say, we got this headliner, who would be a good opener? And they're like, this, So.
Commissioner and everybody on the call, there is only us. That is an important thing about what our ethos is at Metro and is at Hideout as well, is that we try to give information, backup information with science and history. And we've always said we wanted to be on the right side of science and the right side of history as the pandemic began. I mean, at one point we thought the world was ending. I mean, literally. And, the president was sending PPP money to everybody. It was a ridiculous scenario for us as businessmen and women. We began to think we need to take charge of this. And that's something that, Katie, Civil, and then, of course, the NIVA, the National Independent Venue Association, which Civil, the Chicago, was the blueprint for the national program. And hats off to Katie and Tim for putting this together. Being a founding member of it, again, I keep thinking, what was that? It was communication. And that is where the staff begins to understand if you're going to lead with information, lead with knowledge, and be well informed. I think businesses sometimes have trouble with that, and I think that we have strived to make sure that we're transparent and work together.
There's a great saying. Actually, my cousin is the boss, and her saying is "let go and lead." So let go and let go and lead. I think that's such a beautiful way to sum it up, Commissioner.
Yeah, I like that. Katie, Joe and Katie both founded the Chicago Independent Venue League, otherwise known as Civil, which all of our listeners are hearing a couple references to. And they're also members of the National Independent Venue Association. Tell us, what are the benefits of having an organization, I know you've already described some, like this exists, and why it's important to become a member if you own a performance venue, and what tips do you have, again, for our viewers, someone who wants to form an organization, perhaps in a different niche, right? And how that organization can really be instrumental, particularly when you're communicating to elected officials and folks that potentially could change laws that would have an impact on your bottom line, your finances.
Katie, since you are the founder, please take the lead on this one. I'll add something to this.
I'm getting kind of teary-eyed thinking about it.
I know, it's great.
So we started the Chicago Independent Venue League because we wanted to underscore the importance of independence. And I think that we have explained why having locally owned businesses is so important. We know our community very well. More importantly, they know us, right? So if they have an idea, they can come directly to us. Like Lakeview Pantry, Joe's very involved, and probably, he lives in the neighborhood, so they know him. So I simply put, I called the members, the venues that I knew. But the reason it is so important is that we have each other's back. So even though we're competitors, we have shared interest and concerns and challenges. So we could talk quite frankly to each other about things very boring, like, man, do you have a good plumber? And believe you me, if you own a venue,
exactly,
very good plumber. So funny story, and a huge NEVA call, 400 members. I'm like, who on this call has never plunged a toilet? So everybody thinks this rock and roll is so glamorous. There was only one person on the call had never plunged a toilet. Anyhow, so it's imperative that you communicate and coordinate with your colleagues in the business for moral support, for tips and resources. There are a couple of new venue owners that reached out to Civil, and they had a question about, you guys probably don't know ASCAP and BMI, but you have to pay, and they didn't understand that. And we walked them through it, and we're trusted, colleagues. So it's imperative. There are therapists to each other. And during COVID, there were days that many of us had very, very dark days, and others would lift each other up and carry the load for a couple of days, and then we collectively come together. Also, when you have a unified voice, it's much easier to go to a government entity because they don't have to call us individually. We have a united voice to share our concerns or challenges, and it makes it easier for them as well. So I think it's probably one of the most important things of my 26-year career of being a venue owner is the collaborative nature of each other.
Yeah.
Commissioner, let me tag on to this real quickly, only because while she waxes poetically, and I could listen to her talk all day, and some days I have, it's interesting that, we talk about politics and we talk about, government agencies and things like that. But this is a very important aspect of Civil. Civil was a business association, and I like the idea that we could share information about the music licensing. That's ASCAP and BMI. These are very expensive licenses for all of us venues to have. Well, if you don't know the ins and outs of it, you're just paying a license blindly, you might be able to save yourself some money. You might be overpaying. You might be underpaying. As long as the artists are getting paid, we're fine with that. But that's part of the discussion. The discussion is, it is financial. It's fiduciary in the sense that we will share, information about garbage disposal, and the things that really are the bottom line for small business. And anybody on the call here, you probably know that small business has challenges that bigger businesses don't. And that's why we rely on such good staff, good partnerships, and a business association like Civil. While Katie can talk about politics, and we do talk about politics, it's very important that it's rooted in a business association ethos.
Agree. Commissioner, I wanted to just really quickly mention, it came up in when we were testing what we were going to talk about, the business plan. And I just want to point out to folks on the call, we were so naive. We went to the bank and we asked for a loan. And they were like, do you have a business plan? And we're like, what? A business plan? Seriously, we had no idea. So we went to the library and got a book and wrote the business plan. And to this day, we look back to it and we pretty much align with what we wrote.
How many years ago?
26 years ago.
Yep, that was a good business plan then.
Pardon me?
That was a good business plan.
Yeah.
Indeed.
And, I called my business partner and I said to him, what was our loan? And he said he knew it right off the top of his head, 8.5%. And we had no background in business. And Joe, I'm not sure about you.
That was a good rate. Good for you.
Well, you were, Joe, you were like a rock and roller. Like, I do not come from the business world, but I had a dream, right? And it starts with the dream. And you just got to believe in yourself and believe that you can make this happen. The other thing the bank told us, in our business plan, all of our friends are going to come. And they said, yeah, that's what every bar, restaurant, venue says. But let me tell you, that will drop off. And they were right. So after about 6 months, our friends started to have kids. They couldn't go out as much. So luckily we had backup plans too. All of our friends are going to come. But anyhow, I just wanted to encourage people to follow their dreams, follow their hearts. And, Joe and I are available if anyone ever has questions or feels they got stuck on some application or something. Also, it's good to have a good accountant and a good lawyer, and continue to reach out to, SBA, BACP, DECO. I mean, there are so many resources available now. When we started, there weren't even really computers. So you had to go to the library. So
let me just take another stab at that as well. When someone's really first starting out, right, and they're maybe having a hard time finding some business loans, what do you recommend to that entrepreneur in terms of putting stuff either on their personal credit card or even like a business credit card? And like, how far out do you get before it's like, wait a minute, I got to stop this behavior and really go and get a more established loan?
Joe, hold on. We only spent the money we had. And I had a friend that had a very successful restaurant. And I said to her, do not spend the money until you have the money. And she did that. But luckily her father was an architect, so he can help with that. But everyone's different. Go ahead, Joe.
I agree. I always look at it like almost like casino rules, play with the house's money if you can, as long as you can. You do have to have a relationship with a bank. And that is, I will stress the idea that I like the local banks. I like to know a guy. I'm kind of old Chicago that way. Like, I want a face to my banker. I don't want just a website. I feel that's a bit scary and robots, But so like in Chicago style, I know a guy or I know a gal. And I still feel that is important. So again, going back to the community-based business relationship, if you're going into a neighborhood, get to know your neighbors. understand what's going on. If you're brick and mortar and you're going to do a restaurant or a bar or something along those lines, I would suggest finding out who's in the neighborhood. Maybe even go eat in some of those places, or drink in some of those places, or purchase food or from the bodega or from the convenience store. Figure out who's your neighbors, and you can learn so much about where your business is going to be based on some of that. That's what I did when I found Metro. I didn't buy the building right away. It took me about 10 years to put the money together. But I rented, and I rented, and I had good people that worked for us. Music was certainly the part of it, but we sold beer to really, provide the salaries that we needed to do. So I would say that know your neighbors, know the neighborhood, find yourself a good bank, local is my suggestion. Katie, as she said, a lawyer, very important. I did the accounting at first. I was really happy when I found a really good accountant, let me tell you.
Well, the other thing, Commissioner, is my business partners and I worked every shift.
Yeah.
So although, it was sweat equity, right? So we didn't even have a manager, which I look back now and I think, oh my God, until year 16. So we all did all of that work ourselves. We always had an accountant. Joe said something. Oh, in Chicago, we were so fortunate during the shutdown that most of us owned our real estate, owned the dirt. Our colleagues in New York, California, they found that Nashville found themselves in a very different place because they were renters.
Yeah.
And I truly believe in ownership. And I think it's because it's baked into my DNA. I'm Irish. So we always think the English are going to take the land from us. So nothing against anyone who's British on the call. But ownership is really important. And I'm sure Joe felt the same way, because that's why he was aggressively trying to become a renter to an owner, because then you can control your own destiny. If possible, if you can be an owner, I would highly suggest that.
Yeah. And Joe, how did you go from being a renter and then purchasing the building 10 years later? How did that work out?
Well, my relationship with my landlord was, it was tough. I will say, it wasn't easy at first. I think the most important thing is that I made sure he got his rent. So when he was ready to move on and retire, I was able to step in. We weren't necessarily friends, but it was a good business relationship based on trust, I made sure he got his rent check. And if I was going to be short, I would tell him like halfway through the month, look, it's been a tough week or two. I'm going to catch up. I'll even give you extra interest on it. So I think that, again, when I go back to the financial or fiduciary responsibility of running a business, it's based on communication and trust. And we all know that it's tough sometimes to admit a bit of failure. It's okay. Failure actually helps you succeed once you understand that's just a step of doing business. One of the things that Katie mentioned is like controlling your destiny. I will say that when we did make and got a mortgage for the building, it was an unbelievable relief, because that was the moment where I knew I was going to stay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
40 years ago.
It's relationships. It keeps coming up. So we did not have a relationship with the bank, and it made it much harder for us. And my one business partner who, Tim and I have two business partners. They're identical twins who my husband's known since grade school. So, and my business partner really despised the bank. So he was like, we got to pay this off because these people drive me crazy. So, but it's relationships. It's relationships to building your community, to bankers, people you know and trust,
I just thought of something, Katie, and I before it slips my brain. Commissioner, it's interesting because when I was in college, I met I had friends. And when after I left college and came to Chicago, I got the lease from the landlord for Metro. And I said, he was a lawyer. He was becoming a lawyer. He hadn't passed the bar yet. But I said, would you take a look at this lease for me? And he looked at it and he says, Joe, if you could put one thing in there, get the first option to buy the building. Just put it in there. See what he says. I put it in. It wasn't transparent, talked to him about it. And he said, oh yeah, I'll agree to that. And that's what saved me from being evicted. Was I actually had something that a friend of mine who was not even a lawyer yet, was aspiring lawyer, who helped me make sure my lease looked really good. And I would suggest that anybody on the call to make sure that, work with a lawyer or a friend that may know more about business than you do. It's okay to make sure that your lease looks really clean and really precise.
Same. We did the same job.
Right?
Yeah. We turned to friends and family for help or advice, and always got really solid input.
Exactly.
This is all good. Let me ask you another question. So as one of our entrepreneurs is trying to, figure out where they want to open their small business, we're talking about, getting to know that area of the city, or perhaps other retail or businesses on the street. If they're going somewhere new, explain to me how important our Chicago community organizations are, such as chambers, in terms of kind of helping you navigate that community and just providing additional resources.
I mean, again, the city of Chicago is set up in such an interesting way that I feel that the alderman or an alderman or alderwoman, that might be your first call, might be your first step. The chamber is important too, but finding out what's going on in a neighborhood through the alderman's office and or the chamber are very good steps. And I did both. I mean, the original alderman up here was John Merlo, then Bernie Hansen, then Tom Tunney. And I knew them all, and I would go and talk to them about, like, who should I hire for the garbage, or what are we doing about this problem, or even policing. And now with our city being as dangerous as it is, and no offense to our police, because everyone's got their hands full for sure. I mean, this is an important issue to really be careful to make sure that you are talking with your alderman or alderwoman about all issues.
Yeah, I think chambers are a really good stopping point to get involved with them, as well as I would look at some research online about businesses in the area. I would drive around the neighborhood, get a feel for it. Is there a need? The philosophy of, if you build it, they will come. I mean, that was kind of the hideout because we were in the middle of nowhere. But I think I'm not sure that would still be true today. But I would, I don't know, just kind of do a deep dive, maybe hang out with the chamber, attend some of the meetings. Some of our other colleagues, like Gomez, was very involved and still very involved with this chamber. I know that another board member, Jim and Joe Berlin, are very involved with their chamber. And they look at them as a resource. Joe, you're very involved.
I talked to my chamber yesterday about the banners that are going to go up on Clark Street. It's very important. There are a couple associations in Lakeview and Wrigleyville that our company belongs to and are members of. But I will say that, to Katie's point, if you're opening a business, not only go there during the day, go there at night, go there in the afternoon. Okay? Make sure you see it. And as I say, even if you can go purchase some food or a drink and just be in the neighborhood, know where you're going. I think it's really important.
Okay. Let me ask you, before we open it up to questions from the viewers, let's do something. Tell us what's in store for the summer, or what's kind of some new some entertainment acts, music acts you guys are looking forward to this summer.
Katie?
Oh gosh. I mean,
that's not sold out.
I'm focused on this week. So tonight we have Lorraine James from England. And we're really excited to have her. I don't know. I would just say check our website. I can't think.
That's good.
that I can. And you hate to give a show more credence than another,
I'll take this one. Okay. I'll take this one. Let me just take this one. I'm so excited because it's the 40th anniversary of Metro starting in July 22, 1982. I opened the venue. We're going to start celebrating. We started celebrating last night with the first 40th anniversary show with Patti Smith. Sold out, terrific show. With Lollapalooza coming to town again, I'm so excited about all the headliners that are going to be on that bill, as well as the B stages, which is really what is my bread and butter. It's the bands that play at 2, 3 in the afternoon. They'll play Metro that fall. Riot Fest, of course, is very exciting. They're going to have an incredible lineup this year. And then, of course, one of my favorite festivals and the more manageable festival is Pitchfork. And so between those 3 festivals, we will make sure to have after shows. We work with all these promoters to make sure that the clubs stay included in those, not excluded, no radius clauses. And that we work hard with the festivals. So with the 40th anniversary coming, I can tell you that my fall is absolutely back to back, great shows. Let's just make sure we all stay healthy and safe, and we'll get there.
So now that you've perked everyone's interest, can you give us websites for our viewers who want to right now Google the upcoming shows?
Yeah.
Oh, ours is just metrochicago.com, and we'll have everything there. And we promote many other shows around town. It's not just the shows here at Metro. There's the Riviera, the Vic, the Aragon, even the Hideout.
It's hideoutchicago.com. So I just looked at our calendar. I'm like, May 12th, Sam Avion with Andrew Sa. I mean, there's just so many. I don't know.
Are you guys a proud parent of a huge name that started out in Chicago 20, 30, 40 years ago at one of the venues? Like when you're like, oh my gosh, these kids are not going to make it now.
I've had a couple.
I know you have.
I'll just give you one. I'll give you one that I did an email with him yesterday about an artwork that he's involved in. He's doing this beautiful civic art piece with a woman from Senegal, Chance the Rapper. Chance the Rapper, my daughter was going to high school and got a mixtape from him in a parking lot of her high school. She came home and she said, Dad, you got to hear this guy. He is going to be so big. I go, why do you say this? Because the line to see him was amazing. In the parking lot, he's passing out cassette tapes and CDs. So we booked Chance the Rapper on a Memorial Day weekend. Everyone said we were crazy to do it. And we sold out both shows. So that's Chicago's very own Chance the Rapper. Jamila Woods, part of that. Jeff Tweedy's part of that. Tweedy's played at the Hideout more than he's played at Metro. But we love Wilco and we love Tweedy. We love Chicago. And that's our own,
Yeah. So, for sure, that's a good question. So, it came up earlier something about, is it a failure? So we had shows with Andrew Bird, there'd be 50 people. And I was like, I don't care. I love this guy. And, now he's selling out Red Rocks. We had St. Vincent, 50 people, right? St. Vincent, Joe, sells out 5,000 camp rooms. Again, underscoring follow your heart.
Yeah.
And there are still bands that it happens more on my level than Joe's level, that it should be a sold out show at the Hideout and it's not. And I'm just like, the world needs to know this talent. And for whatever reason, they don't go to the next step. But you will still book them because we believe in their talent. But Joe is,
it's interesting, Katie, because you're mentioning all these wonderful artists. And I think that one thing that everybody on the call should know is that if you give an artist their first shot, their first chance, there is some loyalty that's included in that. I truly believe that. Whether it was Dave Grohl with Nirvana and then the Foo Fighters, he's always played Metro. It's an amazing thing. Certainly Jack White, the White Stripes, same thing. He was a drummer in a band called Goober and the Peas. He played for $50 on a Wednesday night, but he got to know us that night and knew what our company did. When he got the White Stripes together, he comes back to play Metro. So I think that Hideout and Metro have that very interesting. Sleeping Village is one of those places. Shubas is one of those places where we begin to like the ecosystem that Katie was referring to. It's very important that Chicago, as a source of entertainment and music entertainment, this is a great market, and every artist knows it. You can come here and you can play any level of venues. Chicago Theater, down to the Hideout, up to Shuba's, up to the Aragon, over to Metro. It's a great city to have music in.
Yeah, and thank you. Stripes, he played Metro and the Hideout, and we had to get permission from Joe to do it, and Joe was like, hell yes. So White Stripes were an opener for, I forget who the band was.
Did you send me a commission?
Yeah, I can't.
Did you send me a royalty?
Oh, no.
I'm teasing.
It's in the mail, Joe.
Thank you.
I think
Commissioner, did you have any questions?
I think this conversation could go on for days, and I very much appreciate you guys. Well, I mean, what an inspirational conversation, because you really talked about everything from opening up a small business, how to be successful, take the risks, but then what a great way to end, which is some of these great talents that came out of Chicago, thanks to establishments such as yours, that people all around the country and the world know. So I don't want to take up any more of our viewers' time. I want to turn it over to Stella, who's going to help MC any questions we might have for Joe and for Katie. And so without further ado, Stella, I'm turning it over to you.
I have one more comment I want to make, Commissioner, because I think it's really important. When my husband and I bought the Hideout with our friends, I said to Tim, we are not missing a wedding. We are not missing friend's birthday party, even though, because you can very easily, the job is 150% of yourself. Don't kid yourself. You are going to throw yourself in it, but it won't be around forever. So I just look back and I'm so thankful that we made that commitment, that we would not miss these important life. I'm sure Joe, like his kids, he probably didn't miss a game, or those kind of things that are really important at the end of the day, because we've been in this a long time. So that's my advice.
Just so you know, the photo over my shoulder, those are my two children. And on every Zoom, they're with me.
Oh, that's nice. That's great. Well, thank you both again. And Stella, hope you are able to connect. There you go.
Hey, Ken, I'm here. We do have a few questions and some comments, some really great comments. They're saying that this information was very helpful. A lot of them saying that they feel inspired. Here is a question. This information is so helpful. I helped 22 young adults start an entertainment company to combat some of the senseless killings in Chicago. I've built studios and I've invested a lot of personal funds. How can I contact you guys directly to introduce them to you and hopefully get more help for them?
I just put my cell phone number. They can call me.
Yeah. You please email me, joe@metrochicago.com. Anybody that's on this call, joe@metrochicago.com. I will personally make sure to respond.
And there are some really great Southside venues that would probably be very interested in this. The Quarry, that's kind of Yvette's whole goal and agenda, is to awaken the young people in those communities to the rich talent that was born in that area of Chicago. So she almost looks at herself as a history teacher. So I think she would be very open as well. And we are happy to make an introduction.
I will add also, Katie, the Civil website is also a good place for anybody on the call. So that's civilchicago.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great source for many of the venues, and for those who are involved in bands or studios. That's a good place to go to.
Any advice for choosing business insurance?
Oh, that's a hard one.
Again, my advice there is, I've had the same insurance agent for probably 35 years. Though I use other insurance agents for other specific things. I think that's a personal relationship. That I would certainly advise family or friends, someone you trust to talk to. And you probably should talk to a lot of people. I don't think there's one solution to any of that. I think you may want to interview and resource as many as possible.
Great. So my business partner handled that piece of the business, and to underscore what Joe said, he knew somebody, and we got bids. We reviewed the policies, and it's really important that it's so boring, but you have to really read between the lines. So
absolutely.
He had his lawyer friend look at his lease, and he said, just add this one thing. I mean, it can be one sentence. So we were the only venue in Chicago that did not have business interruption insurance. The Hideout didn't. Everyone else did. Now, in the end, it didn't matter because I don't think they're going to honor COVID as business interruption. But that was kind of like a wake-up call for me. Like, we need to really look at these policies a little bit closer. And it gets more complicated when you have festivals. But I will let you know that our colleague, Chris, at Civil, is part of NEVA, insurance. They are now setting up deals with commercial insurance and who could be available. But it's very specific.
And it's interesting about the insurance question. And that's another site that entrepreneurs, or especially in the music world and entertainment world, the NIVA, National Independent Venue Association.com, NEVA, is also a good resource. The insurance agent that actually NEVA is using is my insurance agent. It happened to be Paul Bassman, was someone that I worked with that helped NEVA. And it's come back around where they moved away from Paul for a period of time, but now have come back to him. And Chris Bauman, our colleague at Civil, runs that insurance side of it for NEVA. So very important. Get educated. They're boring documents, a lot of reading. You have to do it.
Somebody has a question about the lawyers for the creative arts. Oh my God, amazing people. So Civil is starting a 501c3. We were a 501c6. They couldn't have been more helpful. They are amazing. And then also when we were panicking about unemployment when COVID first hit and our employees were freaked out. They couldn't figure out what to do. Very calmly, the lawyers for the creative arts walked our staff through very complicated unemployment issues. And I would call upon them for assistance wherever you can. They are a very valued resource.
One of the things that the lawyers for the creative arts does, it's pro bono. It's pro bono work. Mm-hmm. And that is a very important question that someone asked. And Katie, I'm glad you addressed that, because as young business owners or entrepreneurs or new business owners, understanding what the lawyers for the creative arts does is a very important source and a resource at your disposal.
So you guys understand what they do is they don't actually do the work. They reach out to lawyers, like big fancy schmancy lawyers that do this. We'll do it pro bono. And so we got like a lawyer that probably is $500 an hour to do it for free for us. And never feel stupid. Like, we asked all these questions and he just gave us such good guidance.
Mm-hmm. So this question is for you. They are curious if you ever thought about bringing in catering for your events or work with small restaurants in the Chicagoland area.
Yeah, we do all the time. I'm sure Joe does too.
I'm sorry?
Caterers for events. So yeah, we definitely do. We have weddings, we have fundraising.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, we have a list of preferred caterers that we work with based on reliability. As I said, even last night we had a chef come in and prepare food for Patty. She has a very strict diet, and with food being such an important part of my business, I use the local, tacos. I use the local health food. Uncommon Ground is right up the road for me. They could do the best health food and vegan food. So, it's important to use the right caterer and get a list of preferred clients.
Any leads on community organizations serving the Logan Square small business to aid in training, advertising, and soft openings?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I think there is a Logan Square chamber. I know that.
Maybe go to Wagaspack. Go to the alderman's office.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Talk to Scott Wagaspack. I think he's the alderman in that area.
Stella, why don't you take down the person that asked the question? We'll have someone from our small business advocacy group reach out to them.
There you go.
Okay, please send us an email. Send it to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org, and then we'll send it over to the right person and I'll get back to you.
Cool.
Do any of you use talent from the jazz or music community on the South Side? Expanding our music communities to the North Side venues can be very difficult. How do a small business association, 51st Street Business Association, collaborate with your organization?
Just email us. We work all the time with jazz musicians. We're a part of the Bridge, which is through the University of Chicago. So just last week, we had like Damon Locks, we've had Micaiah McCraven, a lot of international anthem, and many of them, some of them live on the South Side. Micaiah, I think, lives in Oak Park, though. Anyhow, but yeah, we're open. All you need to do is reach out to us. I mean, on our websites, and we love it.
I don't do a lot of jazz at Metro. I would certainly take a look at it. I refer most of this business to Dave Gemolo at the Green Mill, or Andy at Andy's on Hubbard. Illinois. It's tough because it's a music that is part of Chicago, as the blues is as well. It's a blueprint for everything, but it's tricky. Again, send me an email. I mean, I listen to music all day long, so please, I have no problem taking a look at anything.
Yeah, and we used to do jazz every Wednesday night. So we haven't done that in a while, but we were just talking about that.
We're getting almost close to time. This is our last question. If you initially trust your CPA, lawyer, banker, but then realize they are neglecting your concerns, how long do you stick with that person?
Oh, I would not. I mean, it's like, I think it's like almost like one strike and you're out. But I would say that it depends on how egregious it is. Is it a legal issue, or is it, if it's a math mistake? I mean, that's something. It happens in business, people do make mistakes. I would say that's a 2-strike situation. But if you feel that there's something that could harm you legally, you have to distance yourself immediately. I have no tolerance for that whatsoever. I mean, I have a liquor license, commissioner, we have licenses. We have to protect them. You can't, and there's a lot of people that like to maneuver in that space. And I'd be very careful. And again, resumes, references, calling, and making sure that the person is an upstanding CPA and or lawyer.
It's all about trust. So your staff has to trust you. You have to trust your staff. You have to trust your lawyer. You have to trust your, it's all about trust and relationships. Without it, what Joe said. So I would agree with Joe. I'd be, even if your gut, the other thing is follow your gut. So much of our business has been on gut instinct, right? So as an entrepreneur is based on that. Ken, you're muted.
Ken, you're muted.
Sure.
My comment as the regulator for that is make sure you have somebody on your team in leadership or the ownership that's kind of responsible for tracking all of the expiration dates. So when's the expiration date for your business license? When's the expiration date for your liquor license? When's the expiration date for your insurance? Maybe your dram shop insurance, a lease. When does a lease need to be renewed? Even
Correct.
That's not even getting to the private vendors and all the various contracts you're going to have with the various private vendors who may provide the food, alcohol, whatever the business practice is. So many times you'll see a small business or a small entrepreneur come into City Hall and owe the city of Chicago fines or late payment fines for not being on time.
Or parking tickets.
Right, exactly. Frequently it's just because they're just not organized. It's not even so much that they didn't have the money, but they just weren't organized. And like, oh my gosh, I forgot it was 6 months ago. So that kind of in that accounting world and your financial team is making sure that someone's really keeping track of all your various annual, biannual, monthly costs, I guess.
Commissioner, absolutely no. I totally agree. I have a calendar that I have all those dates in that I personally look at as well.
Right.
I couldn't agree more. The other thing is everyone should keep all of their username and passwords in a very reliable, like in a notebook, in home, in a desk drawer, rather than on your computer, because we've had computers crash or, God forbid, someone that holds all those, an accident happens. And we just had something happen where it was a password and we just could not find it. And it was like, but I agree wholeheartedly that it happened to us once. We missed one deadline like 18 years ago, and all you do is miss it once. You never do it again.
Well, that's it, right? I mean, you're going to make some mistakes. You learn from your mistakes, but boy, get yourself a good calendar.
Exactly.
Thank you. This wraps up our questions. Commissioner, any final thoughts?
Yes, I am going to steal Megan Barba's comments. So Megan, I don't know who you are, but I love what you just wrote. You wrote incredibly insightful, and I just lost it. Inspiring. Thank you both for following your heart and bringing up music to Chicago. What a great presentation. I've done a lot of these, and this has really knocked it out of the park. Just because of your passion for your business, for your the business that you do, and also just your passion for the culture and music and the community. It's also very, very important. So I just want to thank you for taking time out of your day. It's always a pleasure working with both of you. I'm glad it's not a Friday Night Crisis. Sometimes we've been involved in our Friday Night Crises. And for all of the viewers and listeners today on the webinar, thank you so much for participating. I hope we provide you lots of information. I encourage everyone to look at our BACP website and also join us on Wednesday afternoons and Friday mornings for various webinars as you put together your business plan, as you open up your business, continue your business or expand your businesses. And Stella has done a great job of putting up this screen with all of our social media and what have you. But stay in touch with the website, and by all means, sign up for our various newsletters and weekly updates. So thank you, Katie. Thank you, Joe. And thank you, everyone. And shout out to my team. Thank you for the BACP Outreach and Education team. This is the team that brought Chicagoans probably 350 webinars during the pandemic. What was allowed, what wasn't allowed. We were doing 5, 6, 7 weeks. So thank you for the entire team for putting this together. So everyone have a great day, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.